Hello and welcome to the Retail Journey. Today we are so excited to be talking with Tasha Tandy, Vice President over food, breakfast, baking, and commercial bread.
There we go.
And we'll be talking about the merchant mindset, getting a little bit of tips and tricks to navigate the twists, turns, bumps, and potholes along the retail journey, which we'll be taking today.
All right, and welcome everybody. This is James Harris and Charles Greathouse, your hosts. And as Charles said, we're speaking to Tasha Tandy today. When Tasha began her Walmart career, she was a buyer's assistant. That's a role that doesn't exist anymore. The good old days before moving on to store and space planning, allocation, store new and remodel store projects, and then which makes everybody at High Impact very happy. Her next role was in modular space, analytics, and execution before she moved into her leadership roles, originally in outdoor living and home divisions, before moving to where she's at today. Is that about wrapping up?
That's about wraps it up. 17 years is hard to condense in about 30 seconds, right?
There it is.
You hit the important part, the stuff that we like, right? That's that modular analytic piece.
That's right. And then before Walmart, tell us a little bit about what you did.
Sure. I was a martial arts instructor by trade. That was what I did, how I paid my bills for about 14, 15 years prior to joining Walmart. So I'm a certified third degree black belt in Taekwondo was my discipline, so we would say it. So
I just got the chills.
You did?
Now I know.
It's like riding a bike, y'all. It's all in there. It's still in there. So
that's awesome.
Yep.
Just a little bit terrifying and incredible. Third degree black belt.
That's right. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep.
So look
in
out.
Taekwondo, that's a very technical.
It's a very
sport, right?
Yeah. Actually, probably most martial arts are very technical. Taekwondo is a Korean art, so many of them are karate is a Japanese art, so it's just kind of based on the country they originated in. Taekwondo is a Korean art. It's a defensive art. Don't let that fool you, though. We do strike and punch. So.
Oh my goodness,
yeah.
That is so
I
good.
could go on. This whole podcast could be about that. So.
It could be about martial arts.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll have
And
to
the
come
retail
back.
journey will or will not include a little bit of martial arts.
Hey, it's all offense and defense, right?
So when
That's right.
some people are talking about the science and art of merchandising, your art's a bit martial.
Yes, that's right. Hey, the dad joke showed up
Hey,
today.
It is.
We
Just
got
the
it.
first one. There's more to come.
Let's go.
All right. Well, let's get started. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
We're very good. Very good.
Happy
Excited
to be here.
So what are you and your teams focused on today? What are you most excited about?
You know, we're focused on buying and selling. I mean, at the end of the day, it's that simple. It's about buying a lot of stuff and selling a lot of stuff. The important piece for us to focus on is buying and selling stuff the customer's looking at. So the customer's looking for that piece is front of mind for us always. Like and the customer votes with their dollars, right? And so it's not a one and done. You don't show up and today it looks like this and tomorrow it looks exactly the same because we're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Right.
The customer evolves, and as the customer evolves, we have to evolve with it. Sometimes we don't always get it right. That's the biggest hurdle is how do you operate in a dynamic environment?
Right.
Yeah.
And COVID till now, most dynamic period
Oh my
of
gosh.
your career?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like not one day looked the same, especially in the beginning of COVID. Not one day looked the same, and and you were solving different problems than you had ever solved before. I've been with Walmart for 17 years. I've been in merchandising operations the entire time. So you see a bunch of different stuff, right? And I thought I had seen all of the things that we would encounter and be ready for that. I thought I had seen the volume that, just as by nature you move a lot of product. Man, we had never seen what it looked like. We had never hit the hurdles that we had to hit. Yeah, cue pandemic, and then like everything goes out the window. Everything.
Right.
It was crazy. I was in a different department at that time too. I was in meat. By the way, I was in meat and deli and bakery, and so how the customer,
The packing plants got hammered.
Oh my
the
gosh,
packing plants got hammered.
And I don't know if you guys have thought about this, but you don't just go produce more cows or chickens or pigs, right?
You got to get 18 to 24 months, right?
Then there was one of the most interesting things that I think I encountered during that time was this term called depopulation, right? There was a period of time where we couldn't get product product being animals. You couldn't get them processed fast enough, right? And so we lost product.
Oh boy.
Depopulation happens. You can't get it through a manufacturing facility, and it goes bad, right? And we experience those things, and then we experience shortages, and all of the hurdles that come with a product that is of that nature versus something that is produced and in a box, which is a different challenge. So.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the supply chain being a challenge that suddenly my friends outside of retail, we're talking about.
We're aware of. Yeah.
All of a sudden,
Supply
everybody's
chain.
an expert in supply chain.
Yeah, bump into an
issues.
uncle. Head up that port in L.A.
Yeah, exactly. When are going to unload all those trailers? Like, how do you know about that? Everybody knew.
So buying and selling a bunch of stuff to make sure we're in front of the customer. You've got some experience in data and analytics.
Yes.
What's it look like today? The landscape of trying to understand the customer and where they're going.
Yeah. Probably one of the funnest jobs I've done. All my jobs have been great. Retail is detail. Retail's awesome.
Yeah.
Probably one of the funnest jobs I did was when I was leading that initiative around data insight and the usage of data. And 5 years ago, it was revolutionary at Walmart, and today it looks even. It's like a whole other revolution of data. It's the single thing, like when we talk about listening to the customer, that's how we do it. We listen to the customer because the data tells us what the customer says. You can listen to customers, right? And you should. I've got a merchant right now who's doing in-home studies, which I think is awesome. He's sitting in somebody's home in Dallas or Northwest Arkansas and asking that custoper questions. It's a survey sample size of 2 or 5, right? Yeah. And that's awesome.
But deep, rich.
Deep, rich from Deborah in Dallas to understand what's happening in the dog Thrasher. That was really the dog's name was Thrasher.
I love it.
But data tells you what the customer wants on a grand scale. And it has never been more important than right now. Because of all the things we just talked about, right? Because the customer looks different today than they did yesterday. And I've never seen a period of time where the customer is evolving faster than it is right now. And I think a big part of that is because they are more educated. Our customers are more educated as they're shopping than they've ever been before. When was the last time you thought about you were going to make even a small-ish purchase? Did you do it just by on whim, or did you pick up your phone and start researching? I research everything.
Yeah,
right?
You don't go into a store to discover.
No.
On those types of trips
right?
anymore.
And sometimes you don't even.
At least not on purpose.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot of on-purpose stuff, and so the customer's educated. That means we have to be educated, and then be willing and ready to shift when they shift. The data tells us where they're shifting.
How does that change your role leading a team of merchants trying to figure out where they go, and how do you make sure that balance between data and art, that science and art, that dance is well led for your team?
Yeah, that's a perfect way of saying it. I think for one, it's the reminder of what it looks like. We have a lot of conversations all the time on the data and the science. We've got some merchants at Walmart who have been merchants for a really long time, which means they were there 15 years ago, 10 years ago when things looked different, when we had less data at our fingertips. We've always had a lot of data. The challenge has been harnessing the data, right? Yeah. And Charles, when you and I first met and we were working on assortment discipline, the harnessing of the data even then was a hurdle.
It's a Goliath-sized data set trying to squeeze it out.
Yeah, and then you go through this evolution of understanding what do I do with it? Okay, it's the now what, so what? Yeah. So now I know it. Now what do I do with it? And when do I need to listen to my gut? Right? And make a different change. There's also the art piece of it for me is it's the piece that the data doesn't have yet. The art piece is where do I need to, it's skating really towards the puck.
Well said.
Yeah.
That's great.
And you have to know when that's real the data's not there because the customer doesn't know yet.
Right.
And I've got to anticipate.
Right.
And so then I'm going to do something that's contradictory probably to what the data says. And man, you have to be confident. Yeah. And you have to confident to make the decision. You have to be okay with being wrong, right? That's probably the biggest thing that's been a great learning for me is I have to be really comfortable with not being right all the time.
Yeah.
It's just less right
Yeah.
or more right.
Degrees
but
of right.
It's degrees of right.
100.
It's never 100. Like
Yeah.
like a B plus is a good day. An A minus is like, man, you just guessed right sometimes.
Yeah.
So educating the team, helping them get their footing, being okay with being wrong, and the biggest thing that I talk to my team about is being willing to pivot.
Yeah.
Like as long as you're okay with realizing that this moment isn't going to last forever.
Yeah.
And that this what I'm working with right now is not the forever state. Being able to pivot and do something different and trust your gut to try something different, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite quotes. A partner of mine, while we were launching some of the Walmart Luminate stuff, used this phrase of, "I reserve the right to get smarter."
Yes.
And I love that.
Yeah,
It's such a learning stance at approaching something like, hey, from what I know, this is what we're going to do.
Yep.
I'm going to make that decision, with confidence.
Yeah.
And reserve the right to get smarter later, to tell myself or my past decision why a different decision might be better.
Yep.
Yeah, you said something that caught my attention where there's not data to support something, and you do see today Walmart's really leaning into early stage brands in a way
Yes.
that was not the case 10 years ago.
Yes.
So the model was, okay, get really reasonable distribution outside of Walmart, get the data in syndicated, maybe some panel. Okay, now we've got a story to take to Walmart. We don't want to go there too soon.
Yeah.
But now we're seeing direct-to-consumer brands
100%.
whose first retailer is Walmart.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, please. Yes.
So what are the data points there? What do you look for there to pick a winner?
Yeah, it's you don't know sometimes, right? Everything I just described, like you got to be comfortable with like just being wrong sometimes. Like all of that applies in this scenario. It's the scariest moment when you're trying to, and it's probably the funnest thing that I get to do in my job right now. But it's the scariest moment because there's a lot on the line for those, especially direct-to-consumer brands or their small brands. It's a lot on the line for them, right? And an introduction into Walmart can double their business in when we finally land and we cut a PO, right? When we cut a PO, those POs are big, and so it can change the trajectory for them. But the idea of like not being right all of the time lives in those moments, right? And it can be very scary. What I think the mistake that you just described it. Go get some data out there. Go launch it somewhere else. Cut your teeth somewhere else, and then come to Walmart. Like when you
make your mistakes somewhere else. Yeah,
go figure those things out, and then come to Walmart. And I would say absolutely don't do it that way. Come to Walmart, but don't come finished. Don't come finished, and don't come polished, and don't feel like you got to show up 100%. That's where the mistake comes in. Show up 30%. Bring me your great product and let's figure it out together. And when we can do that, then, we're in the boat together, right?
Yeah.
Let's get in together and we're going to figure out how to paddle, and, we're going to hit some waves along the way and we're going to navigate it together. And now more than ever, Walmart merchants are conditioned for that. I would say 5 years ago, the merchants were the ones who were like,
right, absolutely.
I need you to figure some stuff out. We're not ready. At least on the within my purview, I like it's an encouragement. Like let's go figure that out.
So has the tolerance for risk changed?
100%. I think it's just exercising the tolerance for risk that we've always had the right to do.
Yeah,
we've always had the right to do it. Charles, you remember that, right?
Oh, yeah.
You were probably one of the pioneers of risk takers.
I've shipped a few things that if that didn't go the way I thought it would,
right?
It's going to be a couple years till we're out of that.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's in consumables, so that's a long time.
That's the thing I love about food. Like I can make a mistake in about 30 days. I can make it go away.
Yeah.
Right, it's
At
not
most,
there anymore.
Right?
Totally. Days of supply.
We've lived through 3 years of
sellers smell it.
Things when we were in GM. Exactly. Yeah, it's days of supply, not years of supply.
Yeah.
But there's absolutely this tolerance for let's figure it out together. And honestly, it's the only way these work. And I've had the privilege of doing several within the last 12 months, and we learn all the way through the process. And it's the idea of true understanding end to end. We call end-to-end merchant, and Walmart inside you hear this all the time. It's being an end-to-end merchant. And how do you bring it to life? We learn along the way, and it's about figuring out all the pieces. You can't just have a great product. You've got to be able to get the great product to the customer.
Yep.
Right. And all of the pieces from the great product to getting it to the customer on shelf, on your app, in any way that the customer shops, that's the journey. And you figure some things out. And even once you get it to the shelf, it's not done.
Yep.
And there's usually things that you learn then that you have to go and fix.
Yep.
And just having a tolerance to do that, and helping those suppliers can be nervous sometimes about those pieces. And, I think our job is to help them see that you don't have to be perfect in order to get it done, as long as we're deciding and working on it together.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like a real partnership when you launch something before all of the signals guarantee it's going to work.
Yes.
Which can put Walmart in the position to win some customer trust.
Yes.
Which matters a lot. Can you talk a bit about partnership, both to the suppliers who are hoping to have some with Walmart and to the merchants that are in a position to cultivate it?
Yeah. The word partnership is the root of that, right? It is a partnership. So let's be in it together. We love the idea of exclusivity, right? And so when you've got something great, when you bring it forward, be in the boat with us and don't be looking anywhere else. That's the other thing I see that happens quickly is, once you have success at Walmart, or you've gotten that PO, even before we've got to launch, you start getting itchy, right?
Yeah,
and man, I can, if I can do this, I can do anything.
Right.
And that's true. And you'll get a chance to do that.
But you can't do everything all at once.
You can't do everything all at once. And usually that's when the wheels come off the track.
Right.
Like, bring the great item forward. Let us be the first chance, first right of refusal. And then let's be in it together for a period of time, 6 months, 12 months. Let's do some exclusivity together.
Yeah. And when you do it together at Walmart, that can be your entire production capacity.
Absolutely.
Walmart is in a unique position where the volume that exists, especially food and consumables, can take up everything that you can make.
Yes, and it's usually the thing that they don't always think about, right? Yeah. It's like you've got to go secure. Probably the production runs that you have today isn't enough, which means you've got to go secure more.
Going from 2 shifts to 3.
Yeah, going to 2 shifts to 3, adding a line. Sometimes you got to go get some, you got to get some more equipment. You got to run another line. You got to blow out a wall so that you can do that. You got to staff up. You've got to go buy raw materials, right? In food specifically, sometimes you got to go, got to go source some material to be able to produce it. Those can be big failure points. There's nothing worse than getting all the way down to the end, and then it's time to go ship the POs that you got, and you didn't buy enough stuff to be ready, right?
Right.
I told you guys I worked in meat. There's a whole other thing when you get it wrong in meat, right?
Yeah.
You have waste, and waste is not good. There's nothing worse. That was one of the hardest moments in my career when I realized that we were throwing away an acceptable amount of waste, right? Like a low percentage, but a low percentage.
Just throwing that away?
Yeah, like that's
a low
okay.
percentage of Walmart volume is a lot of meat.
A big number is a big number. And you're like, man, that's the acceptable threshold. Let's not do anything to exacerbate that and make it worse. When you're working in my business today in dry, like, let's go produce it, right?
Yeah.
I got coffee, right? Like coffee's not going to go bad before I can, fix it. Let's go produce enough and make sure we're ready.
Yeah,
coffee's an example.
Having worked with a lot of early stage or small brands, I've seen this many times where companies they've got their systems, they're rolling for their current business. Maybe they're in Walmart in a small way, or they're not in at all. And every business has built-in inefficiencies. But when they really land at Walmart and really start producing, that's when they really discover, we've got a lot more inefficiencies than we realize. So retooling the whole layout, bringing in consultants, et cetera. So that sticking with partnership, you work with obviously very large brands, some of the largest brands in the world, and some of the earliest stage, $20, $30 million direct to consumer brands. Talk a little bit about how partnership might look different in those two realms, and what each of those segments, big and emerging, what they can do to facilitate partnership.
Yeah. I think you framed that perfectly. I do. I have some very large CPG companies that I work with. The partnership and how you run your day to day in those businesses look much different than you do with the others. And to some degree, like the amount of time, I tell a lot of the smaller suppliers, like especially when we're launching something, I will spend a disproportionate amount of my time with you because it's needed. I don't have to do that with some of the bigger CPGs that we interact with. But that means we have to be very purposeful about the things that we are working on and how we do partner together, because we can literally change the world. And I know that sounds very altruistic. It's fact.
No.
And so when we, some of the conversations we've had recently is around food as medicine. And I'm in dry, so that, I'm in the center of the store, and you can argue that there's not a lot of health benefits in that space. It's not true, right? There's a tremendous amount of ways to nourish your body in that space of the store. And, you can, obviously there's a ton of food that you can get in that space that maybe not be as awesome for you, but there's this great way to nourish your body. It's an expectation, I think, when we work in food, to bring that forward. Big CPGs can help us do that. And I've discovered working on projects like this, some wonderful things that they are doing, and they have the platform to do it, to bring to life how they're nourishing, how they're thinking about introducing more vitamins into their food, all of the things that they do. They've got big stages, they've got big platforms. And so together we can leverage and tell a really great story and bring great nutrition to our consumer. We need that platform and leverage and the size together in order to do that. And so it's being really purposeful about the time we do spend together to drive those things, and less about, it's old hat. It's old hat for us of introducing new items and bring great items to the shelf. That piece is old hat with the big CPG, right? That's almost like you're pay to play. It's the other things that we do that really drive change. It's not the same experience you have with a small supplier, right? It's how do I figure out how to make my my orders run appropriately? How do I figure out how this launch didn't go the way I expected it to go, and I'm not getting execution in store, and I have that's a struggle, right? Of how do we tell the story? I often find that a failure point on our part, right? Because we didn't have enough conversation with an operator to really understand how do we bring this product to life. At Walmart, we're doing that more and more and more, so that we can understand how I can make the job for my 4,000 stores really easy to sell my product, right? And if I don't listen to them, I can fall flat, right? There's this whole digital experience. It's incredibly important. But we can't forget the fact that we sell a lot of product in a brick and mortar environment, and how do we do that in the best way and set those products up for success in that space?
It is interesting, going back to the COVID period, how there was a period of time when Walmart's brick and mortar footprint was almost seen as a liability.
Yes.
But Walmart was, I think, very successful in leveraging that scale.
Yeah.
And now we're shipping product from stores. We've got pickup and delivery, and pickup and delivery is a huge part of the growth, the e-com numbers we saw out of the first quarter. What are some strategies you see there that are really focused on and leveraging the pickup and delivery component?
Yeah. We talk about it internally about digital first, right? So we've been doing this merchandising thing for a really long time. If we don't put that first, we tell our suppliers that, we tell our internal teams that, think digitally first, because it exercises that muscle, so we don't lose the discipline about how do you show up for the customer digitally first. The brick and mortar piece is going to take care of itself, right?
Right.
But how do you show up digitally first? It's interesting, as you brought up, first of all, I love delivery. It has literally saved me hours and hours and hours of my life. Pickup and delivery during COVID specifically, this was a great example of how the customer didn't respond exactly how we anticipated. We saw 5-10 years acceleration in about 4 months.
Yep.
Wow.
What we would have expected to have seen growth wise over the course of 5 years, if history told us how things would look, we saw in a 4-month window of time. And we would have assumed, right, that once you get to that place, that's where you stay. The customer surprised us in this moment, right? This was like making decisions on real-time data. Because as restrictions got lifted and customers could go back in the store and they were itching to be able, in large scale, to be able to do that, we started to see that number normalize versus continuing to grow at the same rapid pace. And that normalization was important for us to say, okay, how are we showing up now for the customer? One, protecting what they've told us they need, which is this growth of e-com, but they'll then still showing up in the same way brick and mortar. We didn't we were not on the play. Some could have
That'd
argued
be
like,
kind of one or the
yeah,
other.
like, well, this is it. We're going to be on the course to like, now this is going to take over as the primary driving point. And that's not the case. It's so big to our total. It has to be part of the conversation, but it's a muscle we have to continue to exercise, which is why we talk about it from a digital first perspective.
And it is incredibly convenient, but it's also a totally different shopping experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's something about walking through a store that makes you realize, oh, I need that.
Yes.
I didn't know I needed that.
I do all the grocery shopping in my house, and I do a lot of it now by my app, right? And it makes my husband crazy because he's like, "We don't get new stuff. Like, where's the new stuff?
Yeah.
You don't see the new stuff because you're not in the store." And every time he says that, like my merchant mind says, we have another failure point."
Yeah, totally.
And so to me, all that tells me is like, we don't do a good job of the impulse, the newness, things like that online. Because I've gotten in the routine of like getting the same, and we do a great job of, here are the things you order all the time. You probably need some more of this. I do. Thank you for helping me.
Yeah.
But how do we do this really good job of like bringing all the newness so my husband can quit asking me like, can you go to the store this time and just like walk the store and go like see what you got out there? Which is awesome that he's excited about the exciting stuff. But man, like we have a gap.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can't model out shopping in a store hungry. Like there's no way.
There's no way.
You just got to be in that store. You got to be hungry.
That's right.
And you're going to make some decisions that later you're going to look at yourself like, what?
And you're going to
What
find some
happened?
gems.
What was I?
Yeah.
But there'll be a failure rate.
Yeah.
You're going to find some gems though.
You got to find some gems.
And then that gem's going to be in your data for the future.
And then next time you get to reorder it.
That's right.
That data is really clear. I've enjoyed telling some of the stories, folks that have seen what they thought was their pickup and delivery contribution, if you would, as a very low percentage. We're looking in DSS. And then they get into the Luminate data and realize that they were missing a pretty significant portion of what was going on. Now there's almost a bias of, if it's that low, you're probably missing something. Either your data is not right, or you're looking at the right data and your business isn't right. You're not showing up digitally for the customer the way that they need to. How are you guys looking at e-commerce, pickup, delivery, contribution to the category? Are there like success rates, failure rates? Are you looking at certain businesses like, no, we don't expect it to be very high, or how you look at health?
Yeah. We measure it and we do look at it. And one of the absolute indicators for us, we have a whole department that this is the single point, the pickup and delivery data is the single point of data that we use in commercial bread, right? So it's a primarily direct to DSD business, right? So direct from distributor to the stores. So the way we measure in stock traditionally in all the other businesses doesn't work in this space. But I've got pre-sub data, right?
Yep.
So
Nil-picks.
before you have to substitute it, before you have a nil pick, that data, that's a customer vote. That's what they're telling me, right? And so we leverage it largely in that space.
That's awesome.
But you can use it as a secondary data, and we do. I mean, it's 100% how we think about, are we showing up in every way for the customer? And a pre-sub number is, the customer got what they ordered on the app, right? There's a post-sub number, and the post-sub number means I had to substitute something. The customer still gets something, but I still view that as a failure point. They got it, but they didn't get what they wanted, right? They can still weigh in. Now I reserve the right to be smarter, right? So you can tell, we can now accept from the customer, tell me what you think your sub is versus me determining what the substitute is. But it's still, they didn't get what they asked for. That pre-sub rate, and the pre-sub is also an indicator of operational efficiency in store, which is, when we think about end-to-end merchandising, we think about it in these phases. It has to be easy to stock, which is the store associate putting it on the shelf. Easy to shop, that's both for the customer and the picker who's picking your order for pickup and delivery, right? Easy to click, so how do we make it easy for them on the app? Easy to pick, again, that's the customer, the picker in store. And then how do we make it easy to ship? And so if we can think about it as a merchant, all 5 of those facets, we hit all of those points. But that pre-sub data is really important for us to say, are we getting the customer what they need? And at a pre-sub number, it means the store associate didn't have to go look for it in the store to find it. Right. And so that piece is pretty critical from a recognition there.
Yeah.
Just on a personal level, there's no easier way to find a product than to find one of the pickers and say, "Hey, where's?" They know where
They're highly
it is.
efficient. Yes.
What else is on your mind?
Oh my goodness. Gosh, we've covered a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I think I'm going to double down on probably some of the things I've talked about already. How do we leverage the data to tell us the story? That piece is important. And then how do we listen to the customer? And listen to the customer is in the data.
Yeah.
That's front of mind for me always. How do we show up for the customer?
Have you guys been digging into that shopper behavior, Walmart Luminate data?
Oh, 100%.
What's that look like for you and your squad?
Yeah, it's I'm never more proud than when I'm sitting in a meeting and the supplier's like, and my merchant's like, I was looking at Luminate data and it told me this. That proud mom moment of like, yep,
totally.
Thank you, because it's not subjective, right? Like it's like you have that, and so you hear that more and more. Where like I had an assumption, and then I went to the Luminate data. To validate, to prove it or disprove it, right?
I got smarter.
Yeah, I got smarter.
It wasn't, or I grew in my conviction.
Yeah, and sometimes like as a merchant, you're like, I'm 100% sure I know. I have nothing to support it. But I'm 100% sure I know. And then you can get data that like can make that 100% like, oh, it's at zero.
It's
right?
kind of art and science combined, right?
Yeah, 100%. And so I'm never prouder than when we're leveraging that moment. But the data is important. I work in food. I love that I work in food. For this whole the idea of like being able to service 97% of America with affordable ways to feed their family. Like for me personally, it feels really good to be a part of that. But there's the live better piece of our our mission that I think is the funnest piece of what we do, and it's the delighting and exciting your customer and bringing the new items that they didn't know that they needed or wanted. Can make their life a little better, and you can do it in a way that it's affordable for them to have some excitement in their life. Understanding who our true consumer is and what their challenges are day to day, and meeting them where they're at. That's on my mind always.
I love it.
Yeah,
makes it easy to get up and go to work on something that matters.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome. Let's bring the lightning.
Okay.
Woo.
Here comes some lightning.
Okay.
Be careful. She's a triple black belt.
Right. So no day's the same. What does a typical day look like? Or is there a typical day now in 2023?
No, not a typical day, but every day we get up to serve, right? And so every day is about serving. It's about listening to the consumer, but no day is the same. So it's supplier meetings, it's merchant meetings, there's a lot of meetings, but it's collaboration. I would say if every day, if it looked the same, what I would say is it's collaboration on all fronts. Yeah.
All right. What's on your reading list?
Atomic Habits is
nice.
I'm learning about habit stacking right now, y'all.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And I'm putting them together. Like I'm habit stacking. I'm proud of that. Like I'm in chapter 5. So.
I feel like I deserves a reread.
Yeah, it's a good
me.
one. Yeah.
Biggest win at retail?
Oh gosh, this one's tough. We a couple of years ago when I was in meat, we did some things to make sure we could survive patty season. We could get from Memorial Day to Labor Day with enough patties, and we couldn't do that before, and we had to do some things different. And so we went and bought 4,000 pallets worth of frozen patties and stored them in all kinds of facilities, supplier facilities, storage facilities, our DCs, because some of our DCs couldn't hold them. We put them in different places.
They're distribution centers, not warehouses.
That's right.
If you ever tour one, you're going to be told that.
That's right. Yeah, they will tell you that, and they will talk to you about automation while you're there too. That piece is important.
Amen.
And, for the first time we were able to make it, I was like, you know what, success for me at the end of this season, if you come to me and say you have too many patties in stores, I'm going to be like, I did it.
Right.
And that felt really good. So that was a big win to be able to meet the demand we need. And we'd never done it to that degree before.
To meet.
That's fun.
To meet
demand.
M-E-A-T, meet that demand. Yeah. Hey.
Dad joke number 2.
Yes. Open and close. Let's go. What do you do to de-stress? Relax.
I read. I do a lot of reading. My husband and I are big sports fans, so we watch a lot of football in the fall. You get football fatigue. At least Hogs. I do by the time. Yeah, go Hogs. By the time you hit March or so, and then you get a little breath, and then we do a lot of football games, a lot of basketball games. We're Hogs fans,
Love it.
But on the regular, usually I just read. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's great. Well,
And I'm so proud that I was able to say I was reading Atomic Habits versus this is the only moment that I gave you something of like real substance.
So good. Great time to ask. Glad we nailed the timing. Awesome. Well, thank you so much,
Yeah, this is great.
Tasha,
Thank you, guys.
for joining and sharing what it looks like to approach the business, really the customer, with a collaborative mindset, and that the merchant mindset is one of collaboration.
That's right.
Looking for ways to partner and find ways to grow and win with Walmart. And if you're out there and you've got great innovative products and you're thinking about making Walmart your last stop at retail, you're making a mistake, quite possibly.
Right.
So
Come first.
Sometimes it feels like a mystery how to get a hold of a Walmart merchant, and it's really not. There's a lot of ways to find and access and get innovation in front of customers, and no better platform than Walmart.
Yes, and I we're easy. Tasha.Tandy@walmart.com.
Boom.
Just email me.
There it is.
Yeah, I mean, that's to me that's the thing we do is show up, and the answer's not always yes, but you never know if we don't try. So.
Yeah,
Love it.
yeah, and we appreciate your time.
Yeah,
I appreciate
thank you
you
guys.
all joining us on the retail journey. Join us next time. Well, we'll be talking about what it looks like to win in 2023 at Walmart, and you can always find out more at highimpactanalytics.com/the retail journey. We will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.